The sharp click of the smart lock echoed in the quiet hallway, signaling the heavy oak door was open. I took a deep breath before stepping inside, anticipating the gentle scent of the lavender essential oil I always diffused in the evenings to wash away the fatigue of a long day at the architecture firm. But what assaulted my senses today wasn't that relaxing aroma. It was a thick, sour stench, a mix of old takeout and road dust. The strange, coarse smell was like a bucket of cold water to the face, making me freeze in the entryway. My eyes landed on 4 or 5 cheap, mismatched duffel bags, bulging and grimy, tossed unceremoniously on the floor. They were strewn about, blocking the entryway. Dried, cracked mud from their bottoms was stamped onto the polished hardwood floors I painstakingly cared for every day. A few stray wrappers and crumbs were scattered everywhere, transforming the elegant, minimalist space I had designed with such pride into a temporary storage locker at a bus station. I furrowed my brow, trying to suppress the irritation rising in my chest as I stepped over the luggage and walked into the living room. The scene before me left me speechless. There, stretched out comfortably on my expensive, cream-colored designer sofa, was my mother-in-law, Brenda. She was wearing a garish, bright pink fleece sweatsuit, the pant legs hiked up past her knees, revealing cracked, bare feet. Her feet were propped directly onto the marble-topped coffee table. She was watching a game show on TV, with the volume cranked to the maximum, while shelling and eating sunflower seeds. The shells and discarded seeds were spat directly onto the plush, white shag rug below, creating an array of disgusting dark specks. Hearing my footsteps, Brenda turned her head, showing no sign of the awkwardness or embarrassment of an uninvited guest. She quickly swallowed the seeds in her mouth, and her voice boomed over the television. "You're home? What took you so long to drag yourself back? Dinner's not cooked, the house is a mess. You trying to starve an old woman to death?" I stood, rooted to the spot, my hand tightening on my purse strap to control the anger that was about to erupt. Just then, my husband, Mike, walked out from the kitchen, a bowl of grapes in his hand, his face beaming in a way that was starkly different from his usual weary expression. Seeing me, he quickly put the bowl down and rushed over to take my bag, though his eyes darted away, avoiding my questioning gaze. "Honey, you're back! Mom and Dad just got here this afternoon." "I was going to call you, but I got so busy I forgot. Please don't be mad." I looked at my husband, then at Brenda, who was already popping another grape into her mouth, and asked calmly, "Why didn't you let me know your parents were coming for a visit so I could prepare? And why so much luggage?" Brenda snorted, pushing herself up from the sofa and walking towards me with the imperious air of a matriarch. She looked me up and down before declaring coolly, "Visit? Who said anything about a visit? Your father-in-law and I sold the house back in Ohio. Got a cool $250,000 for it. Now we're moving in here with you two to enjoy our golden years. We're too old to be rattling around in that old house by ourselves." I was stunned. Selling the house. Such a monumental decision, and they hadn't discussed it with me at all. They just sold it and showed up on my doorstep. This condo was my property, purchased with a mortgage I took out before we were married. I was the one shouldering the hefty monthly payments. Mike only contributed a small amount towards utilities and groceries. Yet here they were, acting as if moving in was their God-given right. Before I could even process this shocking news, Brenda walked over to one of the duffel bags and patted it as if showing off a treasure chest. "I've got it all figured out," she continued, her voice dripping with condescension. "I'll keep the house money for our retirement, but don't you worry about us being a burden. I'm going to give you $10,000 to chip in for the condo. From now on, this place is for the whole family. We should add Mike's name to the deed, too. You know, to keep it all in the family. $10,000. She was offering an amount that might cover a down payment on a used car to claim a stake in a condo worth nearly $500,000. I looked at my mother-in-law's smug face, then at Mike's meek, agreeable expression. He nodded along. "That's right, honey. Mom's being generous. $10,000 is a lot of money. You can use it to pay down the mortgage. Now, why don't you go get the guest room ready for them?" The sheer audacity, wrapped in a thin veil of familial affection, sent a chill down my spine. They weren't just invading my living space. They were openly attempting to seize the asset I had worked tirelessly for years to acquire. I looked at the sunflower seed shells scattered on my white rug, at the mud stains on my floor, and realized that my peace had officially ended at that moment. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just nodded slightly and forced a faint smile. This is big news. Let me go change and freshen up so I can think clearly, and then we can talk. With that, I squeezed past Mike and walked straight to the master bedroom, leaving my mother-in-law's grumbling about my attitude behind me. I leaned my back against the wooden door, closing my eyes to regulate my frantic breathing. The blaring TV and Brenda's loud chatter still echoed through the walls, like needles pricking at my frayed nerves. I glanced around the spacious bedroom, where every corner had been meticulously curated by me. From the cool silk sheets on the bed to the vase of white lilies on the dresser, every element spoke of a refined elegance that, in their eyes, was simply a pre-existing nest to be conquered. I walked over to my desk and opened the bottom drawer where I kept my most important documents. My hand brushed past the property deed, which bore my name alone, and stopped at a thick file of English documents. It was a draft contract from an old, since-canceled project with an international partner. I picked it up, a cold, decisive glint in my eyes. If they were going to use family ties to trap and exploit me, I would use their own greed to set myself free. 15 minutes later, I walked back into the living room, the file in my hand. The fatigue on my face was gone, replaced by a chillingly calm demeanor. Mike and Brenda were huddled around the bowl of grapes. Seeing me, Brenda immediately cleared her throat and pointed a finger at the armchair opposite them. "Sit down. Let's get this straight. The big bedroom, your room, your father-in-law and I will be taking that starting tonight. You two can move into the smaller one. Old people have bad backs. We need the good mattress. Besides, that room has an ensuite bathroom, makes it easier for me at night." Mike looked at me apologetically, about to say something, but I cut him off by placing the file gently on the table. My voice was as calm as if I were discussing the weather. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I don't think I can move our things right now. I just checked my email, and the company has made an urgent transfer decision." Mike and Brenda looked at each other, bewildered. Mike picked up the file filled with English text, pretending to read it, though I knew his foreign language skills were limited to basic greetings. A transfer? To where? I looked directly into my husband's eyes, emphasizing each word. "The company is sending me to our main office in London to oversee a new project. It's for 1 year, starting tomorrow. The plane ticket and visa are already taken care of. I have an early flight." "A year?" Mike exclaimed, nearly dropping a grape. But his next question was what truly froze my heart. He didn't ask if the trip would be difficult or if I'd be safe. He scrunched up his face. "If you're gone for a whole year, who's going to cook and clean? Now that Mom and Dad are here, there's so much to do. How am I supposed to manage all that by myself?" Brenda pouted, sneering. "Honestly, a woman has no business traveling so far. You should be here serving your husband and taking care of your in-laws. The minute you hear we're moving in, you decide to run off. Are you trying to escape your duties? I know your type, you pampered little princess." I suppressed the wave of disgust rising in my throat and forced a regretful smile. "I'd love to stay and take care of everyone. But Mom, you know what they're paying me over there? $10,000 a month, not including project bonuses and a cost of living allowance. With that kind of money, I could send home over $100,000 a year. After a year, with my final bonus, we'd have enough to buy a big house in the suburbs with a huge yard. We could move the whole family there. This little condo is too cramped anyway." The atmosphere in the room suddenly went silent. The words $100,000 and a big house were like a powerful anesthetic, causing Brenda's and Mike's attitudes to flip 180 degrees with astonishing speed. Brenda's eyes lit up like car headlights. She swallowed hard, her sharp, critical tone vanishing completely, replaced by an obsequious eagerness. She slapped her thigh and laughed loudly. "Well, my goodness, my daughter-in-law is so talented. $10,000 a month? Of course you have to go. Don't worry about a thing here. Mike can handle it, or we can just hire a cleaning service. You go focus on making that money. That's the most important thing, dear." Mike nodded enthusiastically, his worried expression replaced by unconcealed glee. He took my hand, his voice sickly sweet. "Mom's right, honey. You can't pass up an opportunity like this. You go ahead. I'll take good care of Mom and Dad here. Just be safe over there, and remember to send your salary back as soon as you get it so I can manage things at home." I looked at the two faces glowing with greed before me and felt like I was watching a cheap comedy where the lead actors were the people I once called family. They didn't see me. They saw a walking, talking ATM. I gently pulled my hand away from Mike's and stood up. "All right, it's settled then. I'm going to pack now for my early flight. Mom, please make yourself at home." I turned and walked away, not letting them see the cold smile on my lips. 1 year? No, I wasn't going anywhere. I would be right here, very close by, to see how they would continue this happy family charade when the ATM disappeared and the imaginary money never arrived. The wheels of my suitcase hummed quietly on the deserted hallway floor. I didn't look back, nor did I head to the parking garage. I walked straight out to the main entrance and hailed a cab. My destination wasn't the airport, as I'd told my husband, but another luxury condo building directly across the wide street from my own. I had asked a close friend in real estate to rent this studio apartment for me last week, under the pretext of needing a quiet space to finish a major project. From the 20th floor balcony, through the glass and a pair of high-powered binoculars, I could see my own living room and balcony with perfect clarity. But the true key to the soul of that home across the street wasn't the binoculars, but the smartphone resting in my palm. As soon as I settled onto the plush sofa in my new sanctuary, I opened my smart home management app. The high-definition security cameras I had installed to monitor housekeepers now became my all-seeing eyes, allowing me to witness a real-life drama unfold. On my phone screen, less than 5 minutes after my front door had closed, Brenda's mournful farewell expression vanished. She plopped down onto the sofa, grabbed her old flip phone, and made a call, putting it on speaker. Her voice boomed, ecstatic, as if she'd just won the lottery. "Hello, Tiffany, honey. She's gone. That witch just walked out the door. Pack your bags and bring Kyle over right now. Hurry up before you miss the good luck window. This place is all ours now, baby." I took a sip of red wine. The bitter taste spread across my tongue, but it made my mind clearer than ever. So, this invasion had been meticulously planned. They were just waiting for me to be gone to execute it. Less than an hour later, my doorbell rang. On the camera feed, my precious sister-in-law, Tiffany, appeared with 2 massive suitcases and her 7-year-old son, Kyle, a little terror in tow. The moment she stepped inside, Tiffany kicked off her mud-caked high heels in the middle of the entryway and ran to hug Brenda. "Oh my God, Mom, this place is amazing. I can't believe I finally get to live here. Is she really gone? Did she leave any money?" Brenda beamed, pointing towards my master bedroom. "She said she's going to London for a $10,000 a month job and promised to send money back. You just make yourself at home. I've already claimed the guest room, so you take her big room. Why should you be stuck in that tiny studio? All her stuff is designer. Just use whatever you want." I watched as Tiffany dragged her suitcases straight into my private sanctuary. She threw open my closet, pulling out designer dresses I treasured and trying them on in front of the mirror, carelessly tossing them onto the floor when they didn't fit. Meanwhile, Kyle was jumping up and down on my imported $1,000 mattress, his dirty sneakers stomping all over the pristine white sheets. A chilling sensation crept over me. They didn't see this as a family member's home. They saw it as spoils of war. I switched from the camera app to my banking app. The screen showed the balance of the joint account Mike and I shared, just over $35,000. It was money I had saved up, planning to pay off a chunk of the mortgage principal at the end of the year. Mike's contributions were minimal, mostly a few $100s from his annual bonus. My fingers swiped across the screen, executing a transfer of the entire amount to my personal account. Next, I called the bank's hotline and reported the supplementary credit card I had given Mike for groceries as lost, effectively freezing it. "Your transaction has been successfully completed." The notification on the screen felt like a final verdict. I put my phone down and looked across at the brightly lit building opposite me. It took only 3 days to turn a pristine, fragrant, high-end condo into a veritable war zone. Through the surveillance cameras, I witnessed the tragic decline of the living space I had poured so much heart into maintaining. The expensive hardwood floors were now sticky with spilled soda and grease stains that no one bothered to clean. Styrofoam containers, empty plastic bottles, and shopping bags piled up in a corner of the kitchen, emitting a sour stench that attracted flies. No one turned on the robot vacuum or knew how to operate the dishwasher. Dirty dishes were stacked precariously in the sink, caked with dried, leftover food. Brenda, Tiffany, and even Mike all shirked responsibility. The mother-in-law used her age and bad back as an excuse. Tiffany was too busy with her makeup and her son. And Mike, the man accustomed to having his wife serve him hand and foot, was as clumsy as a giant toddler amidst the chaos. My phone buzzed insistently on the glass table. It was Mike. This was his 5th call of the day. I let it ring for a while before answering, my voice calm with a hint of feigned busyness. "Hello? It's the middle of the night over here. Is everything okay?" On the other end, Mike's voice was frustrated and whiny. "Where have you been? I've been calling all day. Can you tell me where my clean socks are? I've looked everywhere. And something's wrong with the washing machine. It won't start. There's a mountain of dirty clothes here. What are we supposed to wear?" I smirked, cradling a warm cup of coffee. So, he missed his wife not out of affection, but because he was missing his unpaid maid. The socks are in the bottom right drawer, in the divider box. The washing machine is a touchscreen. You have to select a cycle before you hit start. What are Mom and Tiffany doing? Can't you ask them for help? Mike lowered his voice, as if afraid of being overheard. Mom says she's tired. And Tiffany, just forget it. She'll just start a fight. Hey, can you transfer me some money? The credit card you gave me got declined at the supermarket. It was so embarrassing. The joint account says insufficient funds, too. What's going on? The time had come. I took a deep breath, my voice turning serious and worried. Oh my God, I forgot to tell you. My bank accounts have been frozen. Frozen? Why frozen? Mike yelled, his voice cracking with panic. The company here is under investigation for some suspicious international transactions, possibly money laundering. Because I'm a new transfer with large sums moving through my accounts, the bank has frozen everything pending an investigation. They said it could be a month, maybe even 3, before they're unlocked. I'm freaking out over here. I don't have much cash with me. I'm basically living on instant noodles. Silence. I could picture Mike's face, pale with shock. For a risk-averse government employee like him, the words money laundering and investigation were more terrifying than a bomb. So where are we going to get money? How are we supposed to live? Mike stammered, his voice trembling. I don't know, I sighed theatrically. I'm being monitored here, so I can't risk borrowing money to send to you. It might make things worse. You'll have to figure something out. Why don't you ask Mom to withdraw some from that $250,000 she got from the house? Once my accounts are clear, I'll pay her back double. Mike mumbled in agreement and hung up. I looked at the camera feed. He was sitting on the sofa, head in his hands. The financial ball was now in their court. That evening's dinner was so tense you could cut the air with a knife. Through the dining room camera, I saw the meal consisted of a single plate of overcooked spinach, a bowl of soy sauce, and a few thin, burnt fried eggs. Kyle was banging his spoon on his bowl, whining for chicken nuggets and soda. Brenda, her face grim, put a piece of egg in her grandson's bowl, then glared at Mike. What kind of slop is this? Are you trying to feed your mother and your nephew garbage? Your wife is out there making a fortune, and you're being this cheap? Mike put down his rice bowl, his expression utterly defeated. He hesitated before speaking. Mom, I'm broke. My wife's accounts are frozen. She can't send money for a few months. My salary was gone the day I got it, paying off the credit card and utilities. Mom, could you maybe take a little from the interest on the house money, just to tide us over? The room froze. Brenda, mid-chew, stopped dead. Her eyes darted around like a cornered animal. She put her bowl down, rubbed her chest, and coughed a few times before speaking, her voice no longer booming but evasive. Money? What money? I put it all in a long-term CD, for the high interest rate. If I pull it out now, we lose everything. The bank penalties are killer. Mike grimaced. But we have no money, Mom. How are we supposed to eat? Can't you just take out a little? A few thousand would be enough." "I told you no!" Brenda snapped, her face flushing red. "I had a friend at the bank set it up. It's complicated to withdraw. Besides, that's my retirement money. It's for Tiffany's future, for Kyle's education. We can't touch it!" She glanced at Tiffany, seeking an ally. Tiffany, who had been glued to her phone, looked up and chimed in. "That's right, Mike. Mom's old. That's all she has. Are you trying to take that from her too? You're the man of the house. You need to figure this out. Don't come asking Mom for money." Mike was speechless, staring at his own mother and sister in disbelief. He was humiliated and helpless. Brenda, seeing her son silenced and fearing more questions, went on the offensive. She pouted, her voice returning to its usual shrillness. "And let me tell you, I can't live on food like this. Tomorrow, you go buy me some of that fancy lobster and get some king crab legs. Kyle's been craving seafood. Your wife is earning the big bucks. We need to eat well so we're healthy and ready to enjoy the good life when she gets back." From my side of the screen, I let out a bitter laugh. What, $250,000? I had discreetly asked a friend back in Ohio to check. The property was still in their name. They had just leased it for 5 years to get a lump sum of $20,000. She had invented the $250,000 figure to impress me and force her way into my home. Now, with her own son in dire straits, she would rather watch him starve than part with a single dollar from the $20,000 she had stashed away. Mike hung his head over his cold bowl of rice, unable to argue. He still naively believed in his mother's fictional CD and was already racking his brain, trying to figure out who he could borrow from tomorrow to buy lobster for this sham royal family. If Brenda's presence was a mental burden, Tiffany's was a material disaster. After 3 days, Tiffany moved all her belongings from her studio into my condo, claiming it was more convenient for taking care of her mother and brother. But watching her sleep until noon only to wake up, put on makeup, and film videos, I knew her real goal was to find a free, luxurious hideout to escape the creditors hounding her. Through the sharp lens of the camera in the master bedroom, which Tiffany had now claimed as her domain, I witnessed a cringeworthy performance of living the high life. She had shoved all my books and professional documents aside, replacing them with a bright, circular ring light for live streaming. She rummaged through my closet and pulled out a wine-red, silk and lace nightgown that I had only worn once, on our wedding anniversary. Tiffany squeezed her voluptuous figure into it, the delicate seams straining. She sat in front of her phone camera, turned on all the beauty filters, and her voice became sickly sweet, a stark contrast to her usual sharp tone. "Hey, my beautiful people. Just got this gorgeous designer silk piece, and it feels divine. Tonight, I'm going to share my secret nighttime skincare routine, straight from the world of the rich and famous." As she spoke, she reached for the jar of La Mer cream, worth over $200 that I kept on my vanity. It was a gift I had bought myself after completing a grueling project. I only ever used a tiny, pea-sized amount. But Tiffany casually dipped 3 fingers into the jar, scooping out a massive glob, and proceeded to slather it all over her calloused, cracked heels. "See, you guys? This stuff is super hydrating. My heels were so dry, and now they're silky smooth." She rubbed it in, giggling, completely unaware that on the other side of the screen, I was clenching my fists so hard my nails were digging into my palms. A $200 jar of cream used as foot balm. A treasured nightgown turned into a cheap prop. My elegant private space transformed into a backdrop for my sister-in-law's scams, where she tried to lure gullible people into her Forex investment scheme. Tiffany was trying to build an image of a successful, wealthy entrepreneur to trap her victims, all while living as a parasite, mooching off her family and using stolen goods. The contrast between the glamorous image on her live stream and the squalor around her candy wrappers on the floor, underwear draped over a chair, was a tragicomic masterpiece. I took a screenshot of Tiffany grinning with the jar of cream in her hand and saved it to a folder labeled Evidence. The screenshots of Tiffany gleefully using my expensive cream and wearing my anniversary nightgown were arranged neatly in the folder. I didn't send them immediately. I took a moment to edit them, circling the brand name items my sister-in-law was using without permission. I attached photos of the original receipts, which I had saved in my email. A grand total of $350 for her little borrowing spree. I took a deep breath and composed a long text message to Mike. The wording was carefully crafted, soft, understanding, yet sharp as a velvet-gloved blade. "Hey honey, I saw Tiffany seems to really like my things. We're family, so I don't mind sharing. But you know, things are tight for me over here. That jar of cream was over $200 and the nightgown was about $150. Could you ask her to just transfer me the money for them, like she's buying them off me? I'll just round it down to $350. Consider it a family discount." Less than 2 minutes later, my phone showed the message had been read. Through the living room camera, I saw Mike, who had been sulking on the sofa, jump up as if shocked by an electric current. He stared at his phone, his face flushing red, then stormed into the master bedroom where Tiffany was still live-streaming her get-rich-quick dreams. Mike's shouting echoed through the wooden door. "Turn that thing off right now! What the hell are you doing in your sister-in-law's room? Who said you could use her stuff like it's yours?" Tiffany, caught mid-sentence, hastily ended her live stream and spun around, her voice rising to a screech. "Are you crazy? I'm working! I'm making money! I just borrowed a stupid nightgown. What's the big deal? Stop being so petty." Mike threw his phone onto the bed, opening my text message and shoving it in her face. "Read this. Your sister-in-law saw everything on the cameras. She wants $350 for the cream and the nightgown. If you have the money, you pay her. I don't have a dime to cover for you." Tiffany grabbed the phone. Her face went from pale to purple with rage. She threw the phone back at Mike and shrieked, "What? $350 for this cheap junk? Is she insane? I'm her sister-in-law. What's the big deal if I use some of her old stuff? You need to check your wife. She's rolling in money but is so stingy with her own family." Mike, already stressed about money and now caught between his wife and his sister, finally lost his temper. "Shut up. If you don't pay, where am I supposed to get the money? I told you to stay in your own place. But no, you had to come here and cause trouble. She wants the money. You deal with it. I'm not paying. If she wants it, tell her to come back here and get it herself." Tiffany stomped her foot and threw herself onto the bed in a full-blown tantrum. "I don't have any money. I invested it all. When my investment pays off, I'll pay her back double. You're my big brother. You're supposed to take care of me." I watched the chaotic scene unfold on my screen, a small smile playing on my lips. Their supposedly tight-knit sibling bond was as fragile as paper when weighed against a few $100s. It didn't matter if Tiffany paid. My goal wasn't the money. It was to plant a seed of resentment and burden in Mike's mind. An oppressive silence fell over the condo after the shouting match. Mike sat slumped in the living room, rubbing his temples, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I waited for the perfect moment, then called him. My voice, broadcast through the phone's speaker, was full of concern but laced with the most subtle manipulation. "Hi, honey. Is everything with Tiffany settled? She's young. I'm sure she didn't mean any harm. You're the older brother. Just handle it gracefully. Let's not upset Mom over this." Hearing my voice was like a drowning man finding a life raft. He sighed heavily. "Sarah, Tiffany is so stubborn. She won't listen. I'm so tired, honey. I've been working all day, then coming home to cook and clean. I'm exhausted." I clucked my tongue, my voice dripping with sympathy. "I know. It's so hard on you. But you're the eldest son, the pillar of the family. You always told me a man has to take charge, to provide for his parents and siblings. Now that I'm gone, that responsibility falls on your shoulders. You have to be strong." Every word I spoke was like an invisible rope, tightening around Mike's fragile male ego. He had always been so proud of his status as the firstborn son, always lecturing me on my duties as a daughter-in-law. Now, I was using his own logic to trap him in a thankless cycle of servitude. "I know, but—" Mike hesitated, wanting to complain more but afraid of losing face. I pressed on. "Just hang in there a little longer. Wait until I've made enough money for the new house, and I'll make it all up to you. Mom is old now. She's here to rest and be cared for. Don't let her lift a finger. And Tiffany is going through a tough time, so just be patient with her. Think about it. What will the neighbors say? They'll see what a responsible, caring son you are. It will make you look so good." The sweet poison worked. The mention of the new house and looking good seemed to straighten his spine. His massive ego resurfaced, overriding his physical exhaustion. He forced a smile. "Yeah, you're right. I'm a man. I can handle these little things. You just focus on your work over there." After he hung up, I watched through the camera as Mike, a man who hadn't touched a broom in our 3 years of marriage, listlessly started mopping the filthy floor. Brenda sat on the sofa, pointing a finger. "Get that spot over there. It's still sticky. Do it right. You don't want your wife to come home and make fun of you." Mike wiped the sweat from his brow, his expression one of pitiful resignation. The next 3 days passed in a haze of growing desperation. The refrigerator was empty. Meals became increasingly meager, roasted peanuts and boiled tofu. What little was left of Mike's salary had vanished after a few grocery runs and paying the utility bills. Brenda started complaining of headaches and dizziness, not from any serious illness, but from a poor diet and a lack of funds. The phantom $250,000 CD remained a forbidden topic. That afternoon, just as Mike got home, ready for another miserable lunch, Tiffany's frantic scream echoed from the living room. "Mike! Help! Mom collapsed! She fainted!" Mike threw down his helmet and bolted into the house. Brenda was sprawled on the floor, eyes closed, limbs limp, letting out soft, barely audible groans. Tiffany was kneeling beside her, shaking her and sobbing dramatically, though her eyes kept darting towards her brother to gauge his reaction. "Mom! Mom, what's wrong?" Mike cried, his face draining of all color as he tried to prop her up. Brenda's eyes fluttered open. She spoke in weak, broken gasps. I feel the world spinning. I think this is it, son. I'm dying. I never got to enjoy my golden years." "Call 911! Call an ambulance! Now!" Mike yelled at Tiffany, fumbling for his phone with trembling hands. But instead of dialing 911, his first panicked instinct was to call me the family ATM. I answered on the second ring, my voice feigning an equal level of panic. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Sarah! Mom collapsed! She's dying! You have to send money right now. I need to get her to the hospital. Hurry! We're running out of time!" Mike shrieked into the phone, his voice punctuated by Tiffany's wails and Brenda's groans. I looked at the camera feed, zooming in on Brenda's rosy complexion. She was just holding her breath to make her face red. There were no signs of a stroke or heart attack. This was clearly their last-ditch effort to squeeze money out of me. If I transferred anything, it wouldn't go to a hospital bill. It would end up in Tiffany's pocket or be wasted on their extravagant demands. "Oh my God, that's terrible!" "Okay, calm down and listen to me," I said quickly, my voice firm. "I can't transfer money right now. The banks here are closed for the day, and an international wire takes 24 hours. Just take her to the nearest private hospital. I have a way to handle it." "What way? I don't have a single penny. They'll kick us out," Mike cried in desperation. "Just go. I give you my word, someone will be there to pay for everything immediately. I'm going to call the emergency support service for my insurance company's VIP clients. Trust me, Mom's life is the most important thing." Hearing VIP client and insurance was like a lifeline to Mike. He and Tiffany clumsily hauled Brenda towards the elevator, his mouth still muttering prayers. I watched them disappear, then calmly dialed the number for the city's most exclusive in-home medical care service. "Hello, I'd like to book a 24/7 private care service at the hospital for a patient named Brenda. I need the premium package. The nurse needs to be there in the next 30 minutes. Cost is not an issue, but I need her husband to pay the deposit on site to confirm the service." The private hospital's emergency room smelled of antiseptic and echoed with hurried footsteps. Brenda lay on a gurney with crisp white sheets, her movements back to normal after a simple IV drip of saline solution. The doctor's diagnosis was brief. Low blood pressure due to poor nutrition and mild stress. Nothing serious. But Brenda insisted on staying, moaning and demanding a full battery of tests and a private room, all to stall for time while waiting for my money to arrive. Mike sat on the edge of the bed, dazed, holding a temporary bill that he had just borrowed money from a friend to pay. Tiffany was scrolling through her phone in the waiting area, looking completely unconcerned. Just then, a middle-aged woman in a finely tailored, light blue nursing uniform walked in. A name tag on her chest read Mary, Head Nurse, Elite Care, and she carried a sleek leather briefcase. Her professional, elegant demeanor made everyone in the room turn to look. She walked directly to Brenda's bed and smiled. "Good afternoon. I'm Mary, the senior care nurse assigned by Mrs. Sarah Collins to provide private care for you." Mike and Brenda stared at her, dumbfounded. Mike stood up, stammering, My wife hired you? How much does this cost?" Mary maintained her professional smile, pulling a contract and a glossy price list from her briefcase. Her voice was soothing but clear. "Yes, sir, Mrs. Collins has registered for our Platinum Care Package, which includes 24/7 monitoring, therapeutic massage, meals from a 5-star nutritional menu, and full personal hygiene assistance. The cost is $2,000 per day." $2,000 a day? Brenda shot up like a spring, forgetting she was supposed to be on death's door. She shrieked, "Are you robbing people? There's nothing wrong with me. Why would it cost so much?" Mary was unfazed. "This is our standard rate for the highest level of service. Additionally, company policy requires a $10,000 cash deposit to be paid on site to activate the service. Mrs. Collins said the remainder will be settled after the treatment period." Hearing the number $10,000, Mike's legs went weak. He turned to his phone, about to call me, but Mary spoke first. "Mrs. Collins also mentioned that her husband would be handling the deposit. If the deposit is not made now, we will be forced to cancel the service and charge a cancellation fee of 50% of the package value, which comes to $5,000. Mike was frozen, trapped. If he paid the deposit, he'd be out $10,000 he didn't have. If he didn't, he'd lose $5,000 for nothing, and his mother would still be left without care. I had planned this move perfectly, forcing him to either pay up or go deeper into debt. "Mike, why don't you just call Sarah and have her wire them the money directly?" Tiffany suggested. Mary smiled and shook her head. "I'm sorry. Our policy requires the deposit to be collected from the legal guardian present at the hospital to ensure liability. Mrs. Collins is overseas, so verification would take too long." Brenda looked at her son, then at the expensive nurse, her face turning purple with regret. Her scheme to fake an illness for money had backfired spectacularly, turning into a trap that was draining their own non-existent funds. The air in the ER thickened after the nurse's announcement. The figures, $2,000 a day, a $10,000 deposit weighed on Mike's chest, making it harder for him to breathe than for his mother on the bed. Brenda, who had been whispering her last words just moments before, bolted upright. Her face went from pale to a furious red, her eyes wide as she glared at the contract. "What? $2,000 a day? This is highway robbery!" she yelled, her voice so strong it made patients in nearby beds jump. "I'm not staying. I'm fine. We're leaving right now." Mary, ever the professional, remained calm but firm. "Ma'am, the service was confirmed via a recorded phone call. Our staff has been dispatched, which means the service has commenced. If you wish to cancel now, the family is required to pay the cancellation fee of 50% of the deposit, which is $5,000. Mike stood paralyzed, sweat beading on his forehead. He looked at his mother with a mixture of blame and helplessness. $5,000. That was the exact amount he had just humiliatingly begged from a friend to cover the initial hospital fees, and now it was about to evaporate because of a clumsy charade. Brenda, hearing she would lose money for nothing, was beside herself. I didn't call you. My daughter-in-law did. Go get the money from her." "Sir, your wife placed the order, but you are the legal guardian present. If you refuse to pay, we will have to file an incident report and involve hospital security. This could negatively impact your credit score and reputation," Mary added, delivering a fatal psychological blow. For a government employee like Mike, the threat of a public scene was unbearable. He gritted his teeth and pulled the wad of borrowed cash from his wallet, his hand shaking as he counted out the bills. $5,000 for a thin cancellation receipt. Brenda watched half the money disappear, her face contorting in pain. The fake heart attack had now become a very real gut punch. They shuffled out of the hospital, Brenda walking briskly, muttering curses about scams and wasteful daughters-in-law, having completely forgotten her near-death experience. The condo felt even gloomier after the expensive hospital trip. The $5,000 loss created an unbearable tension. Mike sat huddled on the sofa, head in his hands, while Brenda lay facing the wall, sighing dramatically. Tiffany had locked herself in the master bedroom to escape the misery. Late that night, my phone rang with a video call from Mike. I tousled my hair to look tired from work before answering. Mike's face appeared on screen, haggard and unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes. Behind him, the master bedroom door was slightly ajar. I could just make out Tiffany's shadow, eavesdropping. "Sarah." Mike's voice was hoarse and pathetic. "I'm so sorry. I was in a panic this afternoon. Mom's doing better. The doctor said she just needs to rest." "That's good to hear." I nodded, feigning concern. "I was so worried. I'm glad we could cancel that service in time. It was so expensive. Do you have enough money to get by?" Mike hesitated, then began his clumsy performance. I'm completely out, honey. Look, I know I messed up. I shouldn't have burdened you, but we're desperate. Is there any way you could unfreeze your account, or maybe give me the password to your debit card? I swear I'll be frugal. I'll keep a record of every penny." I saw through his pathetic act. He wasn't sorry for the mess or for deceiving me. He was just sorry he'd lost his financial lifeline. Tiffany's shadow confirmed this was a coordinated plan to guilt me into giving them money. I sighed, feigning helplessness. "I trust you, honey, but the bank here is incredibly strict. If I try to log in from a device in the US, they'll lock the account permanently. I'd lose everything. I'm at my wit's end here." Seeing Mike's face fall, I knew it was time to dangle the bait. I lowered my voice, as if sharing a huge secret. "But don't worry, there's a silver lining. Because I'm stuck here, I've stumbled upon a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If this works out, we won't just survive. We'll be set for life." Mike's head snapped up, his eyes shining. "What opportunity? Tell me." I looked straight into the camera, my expression full of convincing excitement as I painted a picture of immense wealth. "The economy here is down, and they're practically giving away real estate. There's this gorgeous suburban home, owned by an American family that went bankrupt. I've seen it, honey. It's beautiful, with a pool and a huge yard. I'm planning to use my salary advance and borrow from friends here to make a down payment." Mike swallowed, hanging on my every word. "But," I continued, "I'm still short on the amount needed to close the deal this month. I remember Mom has that $250,000 from the house sale in a CD, right? Talk to her about pulling it out. We'll lose a little interest. But if we buy this house, we can flip it when the market recovers for double, maybe triple the price. Or we could just move everyone over here and live like kings. Forget that tiny condo." The words "live like kings" and "triple the price" were like a shot of adrenaline to Mike's brain. He completely forgot his current troubles, his mind soaring to a land of riches. "Really? We could bring Mom and Dad over?" he stammered. "Of course. I'll sponsor the visas. Mom's getting older. The clean air and modern healthcare here will add decades to her life. You talk to her, honey. This is the chance of a lifetime." I hung up, leaving Mike basking in his dream of a new life. On camera, I saw him rush to the living room to wake Brenda. Brenda, who had been groaning in misery, shot up faster than she had at the hospital when she heard about an American mansion and triple profits. "Are you serious? That's what she said?" Brenda demanded, her eyes gleaming with greed. "It's true, Mom. She just needs you to pull out that $250,000 CD. A little lost interest is nothing compared to what we'll make. This is our big break." Mike was ecstatic, waiting for his mother's enthusiastic approval. But contrary to his expectations, Brenda froze. The excitement on her face vanished, replaced by an awkward hesitation. She avoided his gaze. "Well, let me think about it. It's a big decision." "What's there to think about?" "She said we have to close this month. Give me the CD certificate. I'll go to the bank for you tomorrow," Mike urged. Brenda swatted his hand away, her tone unusually sharp. I said, "I'll think about it." "The certificate. I left it back in Ohio. I have to call your father and ask him about it first." With that, She scurried into the bathroom and slammed the door. Mike stood alone in the living room, a seed of doubt sprouting in his mind. Why would his mother react so strangely to such a lucrative offer? Where exactly was that $250,000 CD? Brenda's evasiveness gnawed at Mike all night. Early the next morning, while she was still snoring, he crept onto the balcony with his phone. He didn't call me, he called his hometown. The person he called was an old family friend, a respected figure in their small town. Through the camera, I saw Mike press the phone to his ear, his voice low and probing. "Hey, Mr. Davison, it's Mike. Quick question for you. Who did my parents sell their house to? I need to sort out some paperwork, and Mom's memory is a little fuzzy." I couldn't hear the response, but I watched Mike's expression shift from curiosity to shock, then to utter disbelief, and finally to a deathly pallor. What did you say? They didn't sell? They just leased it?" His voice trembled. "For how? How much? 20,000? For 5 years? Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Davison." Mike let his arm fall, the phone nearly slipping from his grasp. He leaned against the railing, shaking. The truth was out. There was no $250,000 sale. His parents had leased their house and land for 5 years for a mere $20,000. The entire story of selling the house, chipping in for the condo, the CD, it was all an elaborate lie. But worse, where was that $20,000 now? If his mother had that money, why did she let him humiliate himself by borrowing $5,000 for the hospital? Why had she let the whole family eat scraps for days? Mike stormed back into the house like a wounded animal. He burst into the master bedroom where Tiffany was sleeping in. His roar shook the entire apartment. "Tiffany! Get up! Where is the money?" "The money from leasing the house." Tiffany woke with a start, terrified. Brenda rushed out of her room. "Mike, what are you doing? Are you going to hit your sister?" Mike spun around to face his mother, his eyes bloodshot with fury. "Don't you defend her. I know everything. You didn't sell the house. You only got $20,000, right? And you gave it all to her, didn't you?" Brenda was speechless, her face ashen. Tiffany cowered in the corner of the bed. Mike looked at the 2 women he was related to by blood and realized he wasn't the respected eldest son. He was just a fool they used, a shield for their dirty schemes. "I gave it to her to pay off her debts," Brenda stammered, tears welling up. "She said she lost money in crypto, and loan sharks were threatening to kill her. I was scared for her, so I—" Mike let out a bitter, twisted laugh. $20,000, his parents' life savings, had been burned away on his reckless sister's get-rich-quick schemes. And now, as his American dream evaporated, Mike finally understood he was standing on the brink of financial ruin with no way out. The storm of Mike's fury was quickly drowned out by the incessant ringing and buzzing of Tiffany's new smartphone. She didn't dare answer. Her made-up face was now a mess of tears and raw fear. Threatening texts with gangster slang and photoshopped images of her face on a funeral wreath flooded her screen, making her tremble like a cornered rat. "Mike, please, you have to help me," she wailed, collapsing at his feet and clutching his pant leg. "They said, if I don't pay the interest by this afternoon, they're going to come here and break my legs. I'm so scared." "I don't want to die." Brenda sat on the sofa, clutching her chest, still trying to defend her precious daughter. "That's enough, son. What's done is done. Yelling at her won't make money appear. You're the big brother. You have to save her. Are you just going to stand there and let them kill her?" Mike stood frozen, helpless. Save her? What could he save her with? He was drowning in credit card debt and didn't have enough cash for groceries. The truth about the house money had crushed his last hope. Yet, the pressure from his mother and the desperate pleas from his sister reignited his twisted sense of duty. Just as Mike was tearing his hair out, Tiffany looked up, a wild, cruel hope flashing in her eyes. She whispered, "Mike, what if we sell this condo?" Mike recoiled as if he'd been shocked. "Are you insane? This is Sarah's condo. Her name is on the deed. How could we sell it?" "Why not?" Tiffany scrambled to her feet, her voice urgent and persuasive. "It was bought after you two got married. Even if her name is on it, it's marital property. You're the husband. You have rights, don't you? Besides, she's gone for a year. She might just stay in London and never come back. We sell it now, pay off my debt, and use the rest to buy a smaller place in the suburbs. By the time she gets back, it'll be a done deal. With the leftover cash, we can start a business. Once you're rich, you won't have to be afraid of her anymore." Brenda's eyes lit up. She nodded vigorously. "Tiffany's right. This place is too big anyway. Sell it, get a smaller place. We'll have extra cash and less cleaning to do. You're the head of the household. Your decision is final." Mike looked around the luxurious condo, where every detail was a testament to my care. His conscience stirred, but the fear of loan sharks and the temptation of a huge profit choked his last shred of decency. He deluded himself into thinking this was just a temporary solution, a necessary evil to save his family. "But Sarah has the deed with her. How can we sell it?" he weakly protested. "Oh, don't be so naive," Tiffany said quickly, her face regaining its usual cunning. "There are ways. We find a broker and tell them the deed is tied up in escrow or lost. We'll sell it for a little under market value. Someone will snap it up. The important thing is that you agree. Leave the rest to me." I sat in front of my monitor, my ears ringing. Selling my home to pay off her gambling debts. Their shamelessness and cruelty had surpassed all imaginable limits. That very afternoon, a sleazy-looking real estate agent, brought in by Tiffany, walked through the condo, smacking his lips and criticizing everything to drive the price down. I knew it was all an act. My condo was a corner unit with imported fixtures, worth at least $450,000. But in their desperation, Mike and Tiffany agreed to a price of $300,000 from the agent, on the condition of a quick, cash-only deal with a handwritten contract and a notarized statement of intent, promising the deed later. They posted the listing secretly in private real estate groups with a tempting headline, "Owner bankrupt, must sell luxury condo fast, deep discount, fully furnished, serious cash buyers only." I saw the post within 15 minutes. Without hesitation, I used a burner phone I had prepared and, posing as a desperate buyer, scheduled a viewing for the next afternoon. To make the act more convincing, I hired a friend, a freelance actor, to play a wealthy lumber tycoon from out of state buying a place for his son. I gave him a black briefcase filled with stacks of neatly cut paper, with a few real $100 bills on top as bait. The next morning, the condo was buzzing with activity. For the first time in weeks, Mike was cleaning. Brenda was gathering trash. Tiffany was putting on makeup and spraying perfume to mask the apartment's musty smell. They were trying to create a facade of luxury to fool the buyer and to fool themselves. Remember, Tiffany coached her brother. Tell him your wife is on a business trip and gave you full authority. If he asks about the deed, say it's being processed. Just get the deposit first. Mike nodded, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He tried to look like a commanding homeowner, but his shifty eyes and trembling hands betrayed his anxiety. At 2 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. The actor I hired walked in, carrying himself with an air of authority, his hand gripping the black briefcase. The sight of it made their eyes light up. I sat in the coffee shop across the street, wearing an earpiece, monitoring the entire scene through my hidden cameras and microphones. Nice place. Good layout. "I like it," the actor boomed after a quick tour. He placed the briefcase on the coffee table and clicked it open. "Look, I'll be straight with you. I'm buying this for my boy who's starting college next month. Money's no object, but I need it done fast. I'll put down $100,000 in cash right now as a deposit. You write me a bill of sale, and I'll wire the rest tomorrow. Can I move in right away?" $100,000 in cash. The number almost made Brenda faint with joy. Tiffany was practically vibrating, her eyes glued to the fake stacks of money. Mike swallowed hard, his hand shaking as he picked up a pen to sign the handwritten contract Tiffany had prepared. Yes, of course. I'm the owner. My decision is final." The second his pen touched the paper, I dialed the local police precinct, a number I had on standby. I had already reported the situation to them. "Hello, officers? They're conducting the illegal transaction right now, at Condo 1806. You can go up." Less than 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang again, this time more insistent. Tiffany, thinking it was the agent coming for his cut, happily opened the door. The smile on her face vanished. Standing there were 2 uniformed police officers and a legal official in a suit. "Good afternoon. We've received a report of fraudulent activity and an illegal real estate transaction at this residence. We need everyone to stay where they are and provide identification." Mike dropped the pen. Brenda shrank back into the sofa. The buyer calmly closed his briefcase and stepped aside, giving a discreet wink to the security camera. "Officers, you've made a mistake," Mike stammered. "We were just having a family discussion." Just then, I activated the two-way talk feature on the camera. My voice, crisp and cold, boomed into the room. "There's no mistake, Mike. I am the sole owner of this property, and I never gave you or anyone else permission to sell it. Officers, please document everything. I have all the evidence of their conspiracy to sell my property to pay off gambling debts." My voice was like a thunderclap. Brenda's jaw dropped. Mike collapsed, staring at the camera in horror, realizing that his every move had been watched by the wife he thought was on the other side of the world. The legal official stepped forward, camera rolling, documenting the half-signed contract, the briefcase of money, and the terrified faces of the 3 conspirators. "We will be making a legal record of this incident. We'll need you all to come down to the station." The commotion attracted the neighbors. People whispered and pointed as Mike was escorted out by the police, his head hung in shame. Brenda threw herself on the floor in front of the elevator, starting her usual dramatic wailing. "Help me! My daughter-in-law is trying to destroy us. She called the cops on her own family." But this time, no one was sympathetic. "I knew they were trouble," one neighbor said loudly, "trying to sell his wife's home behind her back. Shameless." The words of contempt silenced Brenda's cries. She scrambled to her feet and scurried into the elevator with Tiffany, desperate to escape the humiliation. At the police station, Mike had to write a 3-hour statement. While it wasn't enough for a criminal charge since the transaction wasn't complete, the official warning and the record of the incident were a devastating blow to his reputation. He signed a legally binding agreement not to sell or transfer any assets related to the condo without my consent. When he stumbled out of the station, it was dark. My text message was waiting for him. Today was just a warning. If you ever listen to your mother and sister again, the next people who come for you won't be in a squad car. They'll be in a prison van. Get your life together. Mike read the message, and tears of a broken man streamed down his face. He had lost everything. But the nightmare wasn't over. Little Kyle was still at home, and the next disaster was about to begin. The condo was shrouded in a heavy silence after the police incident. Mike sat motionless in the dark living room, his back stooped with shame. Brenda lay in the guest room, facing the wall, muttering curses. The silence was shattered the next morning when Tiffany returned with Kyle. The boy immediately started screaming for snacks and cartoons. He ran wildly through the house, oblivious to the funereal atmosphere. Frustrated by another threatening text from a creditor, Tiffany snapped at him. "Just eat the instant noodles. I have a headache." Rebuffed, Kyle wandered off to find his own entertainment. He found his way to my home office. The door was locked, but I had a spare mechanical key hidden in a nearby utility box in case the smart lock's battery died. In their frantic search for valuables, one of them must have found it and left it in the lock. Through the camera, I saw the little boy fiddling with the handle. With a click, the door swung open, revealing my creative sanctuary. Inside was my high-end workstation computer, containing 5 years of design data, and, most importantly, my collection of unique, handcrafted ceramics. To a spoiled, unsupervised child, these were not works of art but new toys. I was at the coffee shop reviewing a contract when my phone pinged with a motion alert from the office camera. My heart sank. I opened the app, and the scene made my blood run cold. Kyle was standing on my desk chair, holding a priceless ceramic statue and making it fly through the air. Then he hurled it directly at my 34-inch curved monitor. Crash! The screen shattered. Undeterred, he swept an entire shelf of glazed pottery onto the tiled floor. The sound of them breaking was like a volley of gunshots. Then he found my acrylic paints. He unscrewed a jar of bright red paint and dumped it all over my mechanical keyboard and into the vents of my running computer tower. A foul-smelling smoke began to rise. "Oh my God! What is happening?" Mike's shriek cut through the air as he, Brenda, and Tiffany rushed into the room. They froze in horror. The office was a wasteland. Kyle, seeing the adults, immediately burst into tears, using his crying as a shield. Her computer, the vases, Mike stammered, his face ashen. He knew the value of these things. The computer setup alone was worth thousands. Tiffany rushed to her son, checking him for scratches. "Oh, my baby, are you okay?" Brenda, instead of showing remorse, just clicked her tongue. "He's just a kid. He doesn't know any better. It's just a few cheap pots. We can buy her new ones." "Buy her new ones?" Mike roared in despair. "Mom, do you know how much this is going to cost? This is at least $15,000 worth of damage. And her work data on that computer. That's irreplaceable." Hearing the number, Brenda and Tiffany finally looked scared. But their instinct was to deny responsibility. "Don't be dramatic," Brenda retorted. "She's rich. She can buy another one. It was an accident. She's not going to sue her own nephew, is she?" I spent the next hour editing the camera footage, highlighting Kyle's destruction and Brenda's dismissive, irresponsible words. I compiled it with a professional-looking, notarized estimate of the damages, which I'd had a friend mock up. The total came to $15,000. I didn't send it to Mike. I posted it in the building's official residence group chat. "Dear neighbors, I am the owner of 1,806. While I am away, my husband's family was supposed to be looking after my home. Instead, as this camera footage shows, my nephew was allowed to destroy my home office. The material damage is estimated at over $15,000. I am posting this as a warning and to request the building's hallway footage as evidence for a lawsuit." Then, I delivered the killing blow. I found Mike's work group chat, which he had once added me to. I forwarded the entire post, video and all, and tagged his department head and the HR director. My apologies for the intrusion, but my husband, Mike Collins of the administrative department, is enabling his family to destroy my property. I am forced to make this public to protect my legal rights. The notifications exploded. In the residence group, comments flooded in. "This is horrifying. That poor woman's beautiful pottery. Sue them. Don't let them get away with it." The fallout was immediate. Mike's phone began ringing off the hook. First, his boss. I watched him take the call, trembling. "Yes, sir. No, sir. It's a misunderstanding. Please, don't discipline me. I'll fix it." He hung up and turned to his mother and sister, his face a mask of utter despair. "It's over. The whole office has seen the video. My boss wants a formal explanation, or I'm facing suspension." Brenda finally understood the gravity of the situation. How could she be so cruel? To air our dirty laundry in public like that? "It's not laundry, Mom. It's a crime," Mike screamed. "It's $15,000. Where are we going to get that kind of money? Or do you want me to go to jail for your grandson?" They frantically tried to call me, but I didn't answer. I let them stew in their terror. At midnight, when their panic was at its peak, I sent Mike a single text. "I'm back in the country. We meet tomorrow, 7 p.m., at the Sterling Room. Private dining. We're settling this once and for all. Bring money. And the divorce papers. If you don't show, the court summons will be delivered to your parents' house." I watched through the camera as Mike dropped his phone and began to sob like a lost child. At 7 p.m. sharp, I walked into the lobby of the Sterling Room. The opulent restaurant was the complete opposite of the state of Mike's family. I pushed open the door to the private dining room. They were all there, huddled at one end of a large table, looking small and out of place. Mike was in a worn-out suit, Brenda was clutching cheap plastic prayer beads, and Tiffany was pale and makeup-free, staring at the table. Mike jumped to his feet. "Sarah, you're here." I ignored him, walked to the head of the table, and placed a thick file folder down with a sharp thud that made them all jump. I waved away the waiter. "Just a pot of hot tea. We won't be eating." I looked at Mike. "You wanted to apologize and offer to pay me back in installments. Let's talk about what you'll be paying with." I slid the first document across the table. "This is a legal copy of your bank statements for the past 5 years." He picked it up, his hands shaking. For 5 years, he had claimed his salary was barely enough to get by, giving me a pittance for groceries while claiming to put the rest into a joint savings account. The highlighted lines told a different story. On May 15th of last year, you transferred $3,000 to your mother. On October 20th, $5,000 to Tiffany to buy a car. Over the past 5 years, you have secretly funneled over $40,000 of our marital assets to your family, while I was breaking my back paying the mortgage. Mike was speechless. Brenda, seeing her son cornered, slammed her hand on the table. He is my son. It's his duty to provide for me. You're his wife. You should share the burden. A burden? You want to talk about burdens? I slid the second document over to her. This is an official record from your town in Ohio. It states your property was never sold, only leased for 5 years for $20,000. Mike stared at his mother, the final betrayal dawning on him. Mom, you lied to me. That $20,000, I continued. You gave it all to Tiffany to pay off her loan sharks, didn't you? You cooked up this entire scheme to move into my home and bleed me dry. Mike looked at his sister, his expression shifting from shock to pure rage. Enough, I said, cutting off their family drama. I placed the final document on the table. The divorce papers, already signed by me. Here is the final accounting. $15,000 for the damages to my office. $40,000 you stole from our marriage. The total you owe me is $55,000. They all gasped. I'm giving you 2 options, I said coldly. 1, we go to court. Tiffany goes to jail for destruction of property and fraud. You, Mike, lose your job for complicity and financial abuse. Or 2, you sign these divorce papers, and you pay me the $55,000 in full. Within 3 days. In return, I drop everything. Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? Mike whispered, broken. Brenda, realizing it was over, began to sob. She reached deep into her blouse and pulled out a small, worn cloth pouch. Inside were 3 gold rings and a thick roll of cash, her secret life savings, hoarded from years of Mike's gifts. Tiffany took off her watch, her earrings, her necklace. They pooled everything they had onto the table. It came to about $42,000. They were still short $13,000. That's all we have, Mike pleaded. Please, let me pay the rest back over time. No, I said, standing up. My trust in you is gone. I glanced at the car keys on the table, the keys to the car I had bought but put in his name to save his ego. There is one last thing. That car is worth about $40,000. I'll buy it from you for $13,000 to settle the remaining debt. Sign the title over to me now, and this is over. My car? He choked out. But I need it to get to work. You can keep the car, I said, picking up my purse, and I'll see you in court. Sign it, you fool, Brenda shrieked. A car is just a thing. Your life is more important. With tears streaming down his face, Mike signed the divorce papers and the title to the car. His final shred of dignity was gone. He was officially left with nothing. I collected the money, the jewelry, and the keys. You have 1 hour to remove every last one of your belongings from my home, I said without looking back. After that, I'm having building security throw anything that's left in the dumpster. When I returned to the condo, they were hauling their cheap duffel bags out, the same ones they had arrived with. Brenda was muttering curses under her breath. Mike wouldn't meet my eyes. As the elevator doors closed on them, I slammed my front door shut, the sound echoing with finality. 3 months later, I stood on the porch of my new home in the suburbs, inhaling the sweet scent of blooming gardenias. I had sold the condo and all its painful memories. With the money, I bought this small house and moved my own parents in with me. The peace was something I hadn't felt in years. I heard whispers about Mike's family. They had to move back to Ohio, but with the main house leased, they were living in a tiny shack on the property. Tiffany had disappeared, on the run from her creditors. Brenda was sick with bitterness and regret, constantly berating her son. And Mike, once a respectable professional, was now doing odd jobs, his face a permanent mask of defeat. I felt nothing hearing this, not satisfaction, not pity. It was simply the price they paid for their greed and deceit. A gentle breeze rustled my hair. The storm had passed, the sun was shining. The greatest revenge is not destruction, but choosing to walk away from toxicity and build a life of peace and brilliance for yourself.